Hello to my over 50 comrades. Welcome aboard. My name is Leander Jackie Grogan, host of the Over 50 Entrepreneur Channel, author of 15 Critical Insights for Business Owners Over 50, and your guide to an incredible, fun-filled, rejuvenated experience in entrepreneurship. All the hype about fast-talking millennials taking over the marketplace, leaving no room for your critical, insightful, irreplaceable years of experience, marketing savvy, and problem-solving expertise is just a myth, a convenient way to devalue your contribution. Sure, some people trying to push you out to pasture have come up missing, but you had nothing to do with that, right?
Hey, shut up, will you?
Einstein was an old man when he developed the unified field theory, explaining the fundamental forces of nature. Michelangelo was 70 plus when he designed the magnificent dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Colonel Sanders was 65 when he created the famous KFC fried chicken recipe and established the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant chain. Nola Oakes became the oldest person to receive a college degree at the age of 95. Ronald Reagan became the 40th President of the United States at 69. Nelson Mandela became President of South Africa at 76. You get the picture. Let's get to work. Let's go. In this channel's first business module, released Labor Day weekend, what better way to celebrate the contributions of workers in the United States than by exploring the fascinating topic of labor, its true meaning, and how it has evolved over the years. Labor is more than work. Labor is a mindset, a way of life that embraces a long-standing institution of productivity and collaboration. Capitalism is often considered one of the most productive systems for generating wealth, economic growth, and a higher standard of living. But capitalism is a complex phenomenon. Quite often, mixed in with productivity and collaboration come graft and corruption and abuse. Nothing to brush over or sugarcoat. It's part of this great work-reward paradox. It doesn't have to be, but it is. Black Americans were brought in from Africa and other countries, enslaved as subhumans, and forced to work on the plantations without compensation. Chinese workers arrived in the U.S. during the gold rush and construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. They were subjected to harsh working conditions, racial discrimination, and lower, sometimes no wages compared to their counterparts. Irish immigrants faced open discrimination and hostility, often working in dangerous jobs like construction and mining that no one else would work. Their involvement in the labor movement helped shape worker rights laws in the United States and abroad. During World War II, without being convicted of any crime, Japanese American workers were incarcerated in internment camps, their property sold for pennies on the dollar. The labor movements of the late 19th and early 20th centuries paved the way for better working conditions, fair wages, and the establishment of the 8-hour workday. Thus, an official day of celebration to recognize the struggles and accomplishments that brought workers together from so many diverse communities and backgrounds. Each group has an incredible story, a unique, undeniable thread in the great tapestry of labor history. Today, I will share my own story, if for no other reason than to shine a ray of hope on our progress, how far we have come as a nation, and how far we need to go. Labor Day means more than a stake on the pit. It is a comprehensive reflection of who we are and what we believe. Thank you in advance for listening to my story. It might change your life. When I was just a young teenager trying to understand the fickle rules of life, an incredible thing happened. My young brain was jolted, scrambled, and ultimately rearranged by a life-changing epiphany, a discovery I shall take to the grave. One weekend, just before Labor Day, my father told me a fascinating story. It began with an arbitrary, off-the-cuff discussion of my father's younger brother, Uncle Dewey. Some crooked lawyers and the county clerk were confiscating, legally stealing, some family land near Beaumont, Texas, through a series of small-town backfilings and tax liens. Uncle Dewey was responsible for handling the matter, but was afraid to confront the local bureaucracy. "He's too doggone scary," said my father. "He's been that way all his life. Hell, back in the day, he about messed in his pants when we broke out of jail." Jail? Jail? Did my Sunday school teaching Christian Union official school advisory committee father say jail? My eyes bulged like a bullfrog. "Daddy, you went to jail?" "Sure, son. Back then, if you were a black man, there was no way around it." He told me the full story, the unfathomable tale of Labor Day that changed my life. A sympathetic white man who admired their hard work in the fields gave them an old Ford. He told them it didn't run, but if they were willing to fix it up, they could have it. It took a few days, but with a lot of hard work and help from an old cigar-smoking fixer-upper Negro named Barley, they got it running. That was where the fun part ended. While driving through a small town 50 miles away, the sheriff pulled them over. He first accused them of driving a stolen car, but when they presented the note from the sympathetic white man stating he had given them the car, free and clear, the sheriff said they were speeding. Of course, the car was too old to speed. Not to mention, back then, there were no speed limit signs posted anywhere in town, but he was the sheriff. They were two suspicious young Negros with the nerve to ride through his town in something other than a wagon. So he hauled them to jail. This is where the story got really interesting. They knew, and the sheriff knew, they had done nothing wrong. The whole scenario played out in a Jim Crow criminal surety work system in which members of local law enforcement were paid a bounty to bring in young, able-bodied African Americans to work for free on local plantations. The period from 1865 to 1900 was a brutal and repressive time for blacks. As Reconstruction ended, Northern sympathizers withdrew from the cause of black equality, allowing Southern whites to pass sweeping laws that segregated and disenfranchised blacks, both psychologically and economically, on every imaginable level. These laws were enforced through systematic forms of violence and terror. Local members of law enforcement wore a badge by day and a white sheet and hood by night. Blacks who refused to obey these laws were beaten, lynched, or run out of town. To better understand the legal system of indentured servitude and criminal labor, I have included a quote from Douglas A. Blackman's book entitled "Slavery by Another Name." Slavery by Another Name: The Re-Enslavement of Black People in America from the Civil War to World War II. Under laws enacted specifically to intimidate blacks, tens of thousands of African Americans were arbitrarily arrested, hit with outrageous fines, and charged for the costs of their own arrests. With no means to pay these ostensible debts, prisoners were sold as forced laborers to coal mines, lumber camps, brickyards, railroads, quarries, and farm plantations. Thousands of other African Americans were simply seized by Southern landowners and compelled into years of involuntary servitude. Government officials leased falsely imprisoned blacks to small-town entrepreneurs, provincial farmers, and dozens of corporations, including U.S. Steel Corps, looking for cheap and abundant labor. Armies of free black men labored without compensation, were repeatedly bought and sold, and were forced through beatings and physical torture to do the bidding of white masters for decades after the official abolition of American slavery. The neo-slavery system exploited legal loopholes in federal policies which discouraged prosecution of whites for continuing to hold black workers against their wills. As it poured millions of dollars into Southern government treasuries, the new slavery also became a key instrument in the terrorization of African Americans seeking full participation in the U.S. political system.
Hands blistered and raw, ain't no comfort in this sweat. They said work was honest, the way to make your way. But this work ain't work, like the dictionary said. They promised me a future, said hard work was gonna pay. But here I am, stuck in a hellhole day after day. A shanty for a home, just a modern slave's hut. My hopes and dreams snatched away, no if and buts. Work ain't what the dictionary said. Somebody twisted the truth of a soul. I'm stuck in this life, can't find no end. The dictionary was written in a land of pretend. The dictionary ain't my friend.
Back to my father and uncle in jail. During the night, some black sharecroppers threw 2 hacksaw blades and a pickaxe through the window. My father and Uncle Dewey sawed and picked and kicked their way out, and then jumped on a freight train headed for New Orleans, my uncle whining all the way. "Do you know what they gonna do if they catch us?" Uncle Dewey speculated in horror. "Do you know what they gonna do if we stick around?" my father reminded him. Back in July of 2018, construction crews in Sugar Land, Texas, unearthed the remains of 95 black forced labor prisoners on a former plantation dubbed Hellhole on the Brazos River, where workers toiled until they dropped dead. My father and uncle could have easily been in that number. Since that day, I've thought long and hard about Labor Day and what it means to different generations. Blacks who suffered through 2 curtain calls of slavery, Chinese who worked the railroads and didn't get paid, poor whites who fell over the edge of the Hoover Dam because safety wasn't important, Japanese who lost their homes and farms while locked up in American internment camps during the war, and now Hispanics who work grueling hours, are often paid below the minimum wage, and are accused of stealing American jobs. American jobs. You know, the busboy, roof-tart-smelling, lawn-cutting, toilet-cleaning jobs for which so many Americans are standing in line. We need to put up walls and call out the National Guard to secure the hedges and highways so we can win back those jobs. As this Labor Day approaches, I have to mention some special laborers, the brave soldiers coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq with PTSD. We could help them. We could stop cutting budgets and closing VA facilities and defunding medical research. That is, if Congress wasn't so preoccupied with voting themselves raises and cutting budgets to make sure their billionaire campaign donors receive more favorable tax breaks to widen the rich-poor gap and create a new form of class slavery. Labor Day is more than a steak on the pit and a cold beer in the fridge. It is a neon light flashing in our faces, the faces of those who would dare to look. It's a reflection of our history, however glorious or shameful, however rewarding or disturbing. A reset with a zero tolerance for the gross inequities of the past and the shameful toll on human dignity that must not follow us into a callous, humanless, profit-blind future. On this Labor Day, may God bless all of the laborers of this country, as Jim Crow and its many new faces of disenfranchisement try to roll back the clock to darker days we thought we left behind. May God bless us all.